In this video, I have made a list of films that can make your approach towards life fundamentally existential. In a time where everybody is running to catch the horizon, these films will at least make you start looking at the sky and clouds more often. I have arranged these existential films according to how approachable they are. So the first film in this list will be the most approachable, and it will progressively get more unconventional and perhaps challenging. So you can see them one by one at your own pace, getting deeper and deeper into their existentialism. Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter and Spring. Directed by Kim Ki-duk. A floating monastery, surrounded by lush green forest, primarily concerning two characters, of a master and a disciple. We observe their lives as the seasons come and go. One might not expect this film to be very engaging, but unlike most meditative films, this is a film where everything happens. Engrossing from start to finish, this film is seemingly a parable, but its assertions are not underlined by any ideology, but arrived at simply by watching the cyclical nature of life. This relationship of the master and the disciple is not shown here as some moralistic tale. It's a kind of tale where the master is not giving any moral codes, but where the disciple is allowed to follow his nature, with an underlying knowingness of the fact that by going along nature, one might be able to understand it and go beyond it, and how going against nature always brings you back to nature in unnatural ways. Here, the master doesn't act as an active or passive imposer of ancient words, but acts as a light source, allowing freedom to the disciple to either keep groping in the darkness or to see in the light. I personally consider this film as an essential viewing to every girl or boy when they turn 18. Babel, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu. From a film set in one single location, this one plays across multiple continents. It explores the lives of humans so far aloof from each other, but still impacting each other's lives in completely unintentional but unbelievably dynamic ways. According to the Bible, there was a time when all humans spoke one single language, but when gods realized that humans' collective power would be too much to handle, they confused our language so that we couldn't understand each other. The word Babel sounds similar to the word for confused in the Hebrew language. This film is an antithesis of this myth. Babel poignantly captures that even though our languages might be different, it is nothing more than just another hurdle in our pursuit for mutual cooperation through compassion. Language might not unite us, but what brings us together is the possibility hidden in each one of us to see the other not just as one of us but as oneself, disregarding the numerous superficial differences. And that possibility is so omnipotent yet so imperceptible at first sight that even gods fail to grasp it. This is one of the most heartbreaking, painful, but still optimistic films I have ever seen, and the way it's filled with such existentialism that there is a chance that you'd be a different person by the end of it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, directed by Milos Forman. Were you ever in a position where the lack of freedom defined and surrounded your whole existence? If not, then One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest will remind you the value of the most basic physical freedom that most of us take for granted. Just to make you interested, let me just say that it's about a prisoner who, to escape jail time, fakes insanity to make his way to the ward of the mentally unstable. This film is completely different from what you might think from this plotline. This film has the highest number of great performances I have ever seen. It makes us really wonder if they are really actors or actual mentally challenged patients. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest has been my favorite film ever for the longest time. This is one of those rare times when I use this word, but it is perfect in every single aspect. I mean, this film contains everything. It is funny, it is sad, it is hopeful, it is entertaining, it is exciting, it is contemplative. I have never seen a film that so flawlessly evokes such contradictory emotions in us. I love it dearly, and I know that you will too. Pather Panchali, directed by Satyajit Ray. In 1955, a 34-year-old Satyajit Ray made his first film about rural Bengal in Bengali language with non-actors and a very low budget, which would go on to inspire generations of filmmakers and artists all over the world. Pather Panchali brought India on a global stage and went on to give a visual vocabulary of what India, or more so what Indianness is, to non-Indians who never had or never would visit India. Pather Panchali, the first installment of Apu trilogy, is one of the greatest visual depictions of rural existence, struggles due to poverty, and childhood in such conditions. It tells the story of the life of Apu, how he keeps on living, not necessarily as a hero but just as a human, experiencing everything and emerging as a more evolved person. One of the many insightful things the story of Pather Panchali and the following films shows us is that tragedy can define your life only if you let it to. I won't say more than that, but when you see Pather Panchali, you will empathize with his characters way more than you might think you would beforehand. And the curiosity this film will invoke in you about this culturally and spiritually rich nation will set you upon a journey which will never fail to be ever enriching. Ikiru, directed by Akira Kurosawa. From all the films made with its plot being its central character getting diagnosed with a terminal disease and living his or her life accordingly, Akira Kurosawa's Ikiru stands highest. Ikiru, or to live, reminds us that the smallest act of kindness can have profound impact in people's lives. It reminds us that we do not have to be reminded of our fleeting existence through some terminal disease. Death is anyway looming over us, with no guarantee of when it will grasp us in its hold. Most of us think that we would be old enough to die of old age, but don't the young people who die in accidents or cardiac arrests might think the same? Ikiru reminds us of the joy in doing something good for others, the only joy which we find ourselves incapable of pursuing at the time. We anyway are always in mortal danger. Ikiru asks us that what exactly are we waiting for to push us in the pursuit to find or create a meaning of our life? Where is the Friend's Home? Directed by Abbas Kiarostami. An 8-year-old boy trying to return his classmate's notebook before dusk. Next day the teacher is going to check their homework. That's the whole plot of the movie. After a certain age, we start assuming that childhood was all blissful and devoid of any problems. This movie reminds us that the problems and challenges we faced in our childhood used to cloud our being with as much worry and fear as the seemingly bigger problems do now. It's in retrospect we see how we used to exhaust our total attention to now apparently trivial concerns, and how the things which seem so important now just might again seem trivial when looked back by our future self. Abbas Kiarostami, through this film, sews all the phases of life through one thin thread of a fact that the problems and challenges we face now have been present in our life from the very start. Surely the shapes and structures of this problem have changed, but the fear they induce is exactly the same we felt when we forgot to do our homework even when the teacher warned us against it. Where is the Friend's Home exudes such innocence and honesty that it will resurface in you the purity which somehow managed to remain hidden as you went through life and all that life brings. Melancholia, directed by Lars von Trier. Melancholia arrives at a kind of peace that stands in polar opposite from what we conventionally imply when we talk about peace. Anything more than that would be spoiling the movie for you, because it's the kind of film which is better the less you know about it. I'll just say that by the end of this film, you will surely question whether optimism is always worth it, even if at times it can't make peace with the indifferent happenings of life, even if at times it can't accept existence as it is and is forever in the ultimately futile desire to change existence, to make it more comfortable. It also makes us question if, with the obviousness with which we choose optimism over pessimism, isn't that ultimately leading us to more despair and is making us live in the denial of the fact that our importance to existence is no more than of an ant or of a grass blade? Melancholia asks this question quietly, and we sit there as the credits roll, wondering why we never saw in pessimism what melancholia made us see. Chungking Express, directed by Wong Kar-wai. Chungking Express makes you nostalgic about times and places which are at a far distance from you. If you have ever read a Murakami novel, you might be familiar with this feeling. Now I can't pinpoint one thing that has made me put Chungking Express on a list of existential films, but something about Chungking Express is so alive and makes me so aware of my surroundings that I can't help but call it existential. Maybe what's so universally resonating about Chungking Express is how we try to deal with loneliness which surrounds us. Sometimes with cigarettes, sometimes with alcohol, sometimes with people. Chungking Express follows two cops and two women, one a mysterious underworld figure and one a late-night restaurant server, and how they momentarily intersect each other's lives reminds us that, like cigarettes and alcohol, people also can help you stop feeling lonely just for a certain span of time. But the loneliness resumes its form again. Maybe this truth is what makes Chungking Express existential. Yi, directed by Edward Young. Yi, which means one by one or individually, on the surface is a Taiwanese family drama, but underneath, it tries almost to hold the whole human existence in its hands. It is so late in this list for the simple reason that during the first watch, there is a chance that you will be quite confused, wondering what is the relationship between the members of this family. But after you have figured that out, Yi will emerge for you as a giant tapestry of all that human life consists of. Perhaps the greatest swan song of a filmmaker, Edward Young seems to have given everything he had to his last masterpiece. Yi is the kind of film which doesn't come to you. You have to slowly approach it. The most profound moments in this film don't have any kind of underlining under them. They are shown as realistically, as honestly, like one might show a tree weaving in a wind. And the more you watch the film, the more you start seeing its depth in various different ways. Marriage, death, birth, love, loss, spirituality, search for meaning, purpose, childhood, adolescence, old age, memories, aspirations, all are shown in Yi in such a way like one might show a flowing river. It has beauty, it has truth, it is profound, but only if you come to it with open eyes and open mind. The Tree of Life, directed by Terrence Malick. The Tree of Life is perhaps the essence of existential cinema, but it's a kind of film where you have to leave all your narrative expectations by the door. But after you have done that, the Tree of Life would be no short of a religious experience for you. If Yi tries to hold the whole humanity in its hands, the Tree of Life tries to hold the whole universe. From the cosmic birth of the universe, creation of Earth, formation of life, evolution to human life, to the curiosities and passions and guilts of childhood and adolescence, to examining the dual ways of living, the way of nature and the way of grace. The Tree of Life showcases every facet of existence with such passion and life that it can make you more alive than before. That is, if you let it to. Also, as other great filmmakers use story as a means to something greater, by the time you finish this film, you realize that Terrence Malick achieves something greater not through story, but through beauty. Mirror, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. If the Tree of Life shows us the beauty and splendor of the world we live in, Andrei Tarkovsky's Mirror reflects the depth and mystery of the world we are. On the surface, it concerns the memories, dreams, and thoughts of a 40-year-old man on his deathbed reminiscing about his family and life amidst various political and social upheavals. Mirror is certainly the hardest to comprehend film on the list, but not if we remember that we aren't supposed to understand it in a conventional sense. Like the great Akira Kurosawa once said about Mirror, that yes, at a glance it seems to have no rational development in its storytelling, but we have to remember it is impossible that in our soul, our childhood memories should arrange themselves in a static, gradual sequence. Once you are convinced of its truthfulness, you may find Mirror the easiest film to understand. I don't think anyone else could describe Mirror so simply and profoundly. Lastly, I can assure you that if you go to Mirror with receptive eyes, you will be moved, maybe not intellectually, but spiritually.